afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. It's a little cloudy, kind of gross here in New Hampshire. We're so excited to have our good friend John back. Tim Golden, founder of Compliance Scorecard, where we help your MSPs operationalize the governance, risk, and compliance pieces within your business. Let's see, Mr. Tim, how are you today?
Doing great, and really excited about this episode. John Pryor and I, former colleagues. I got an extra R on my name there.
I'm fixing it.
I like for the emphasis. But John and I used to work at a company called ICAP Ocean-Toma, which was known for its patent and IP auctions that were really bringing together all the buyers and sellers of IP globally. These auctions were all over the place. They were a lot of fun. John was actually a phenomenal live auctioneer, and we went to kind of work on different careers. I started working in cybersecurity, and John continues to be one of the world's top IP strategists. So really excited about this. Like Tim Schnur, Inquisitive IT. I work in the tri-state area helping small businesses, finance, accounting, law firms to help with their secure IT. So Jesse, you're up.
Awesome. Let me pull Jesse up into the right spot so we have the right things, trying to do some new stuff.
Yeah, I like this cool new scrolling thing you got going on, Tim. That makes it look super fancy.
Trying.
Yeah. So I'm Jesse Miller, founder of Power PSA Consulting. We help MSPs to scale their security programs and do it profitably. I'm as well, like Tim said, I love following John on LinkedIn and all the things he has to say. And I especially appreciate what he does from a VCSO perspective, because he actually gets clients to listen about doing data tagging and data prioritization and data management techniques that always seem to find their way to the back burner. So again, excited for the show today and getting to some pragmatic techniques that our listeners can take away to start talking with their clients about insider risk and how we can start structuring our programs around that.
Awesome. And Mr. John, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get you up on stage.
That's great. I mean, thank you very much, guys, for the welcome, for having me back. Really appreciate it. And I think, to pick up on a couple of comments, I'm really psyched, motivated about the intersect of intellectual property and information security. I don't think either areas are given sufficient attention, but I honestly do believe, living through the biggest ever misappropriation of corporate wealth in history, essentially through trade secrets.
Love it. And I suppose
misappropriation. Go ahead.
I suppose I ought to give myself the opportunity to say hello, because I'm not getting really good at doing that from time to time. But Tim Golden, founder of Compliance Scorecard, as I kind of briefly said in the beginning. We help your MSP take this whole crazy, scary thing, compliance, and kind of break it down into uncomplicated meaning and uncomplicated methods for you and your MSP to kind of operationalize compliance, risk, and all that fun stuff. And so we're really excited today, like I said, to have John, because we're going to talk about insider threat, negligent or malicious, right? And I know we have some topics here that we're going to kind of get through. So let's just dive right in, my friends.
Yeah. So, John, like I said, he's one of the world's biggest IP strategists. I wrote a white paper probably a month or two ago about malicious insider threat, and specifically, there's different kinds of sensitive data in a small business, medium-sized business, large business, right? There's the data you hold on behalf of customers, which is usually what regulators are looking for you to protect, and a lot of the compliance that Tim deals with is focused on customer data. Then there's proprietary and strategic data, which which John is referring to, we're witnessing some of the biggest theft of corporate assets in history, right? Like employees walking out of a firm, employees not being careful. And there's two insider threats, right? There's malicious insider threat, and then there's negligence, right? So like just having bad cybersecurity and your borders are open, your walls are open, you're easy to phish, that would fall under the negligent category. And then malicious is really this insider who was aware of great assets, proprietary assets, could be anything, could be recipes, could be decks, sales lists, customer lists, right? And then taking those with them or giving them out to a competitor for some kind of compensation. This malicious insider threat, like we usually hear about in the news, like someone leaked secrets to China, right? Like from that's more of a national security concern, but this happens all the time at corporate businesses. So, John, any thoughts? I was going to refer to a famous movie I don't think it's that famous, with Julia Roberts and Clive Owen, and they're involved in corporate espionage. If anyone's seen that movie.
Love the movies, yeah.
If you haven't, John, it's definitely a weekend watch. Yeah. Yeah,
I know, but yes, yeah. The press that came out at the weekend over the guy, and we shouldn't bang on about China and corporate espionage, but I'm not sure this was nation state espionage, but it was certainly corporate espionage. The guy had been working at Google for 15 years, spent an inordinate amount of time back in China, but nobody knew he was in China because his mates were still carding him into the office. But he was over in China, basically, walking around selling Google's top secret AI, code essentially, and hopefully make money for himself off the back of it. What he was doing, how he was doing it, I was kind of surprised Google allowed this to happen. On his MacBook, he was saving it down to notes, then he was transferring it to PDF, and then he was able to send it out, and it wasn't being tracked, it wasn't being identified. And so, this guy who was former FBI director of counterintelligence said, balls have been dropped here, left, right, and center. And three simple steps. One is, I know what your crown jewels are. Number one,
Mm-hmm.
You need to get much better at identifying what is a crown jewel. Number two, identify the employees who are exposed to this. And this comes back to something you said the other day, Tim. Least risk, lean function, I think it was. And then number three, monitor those employees and the crown jewels. So if the guy's leaving and going to China, know about it. And it's not that hard to do, to track that kind of information. But I guarantee the vast majority of businesses don't have a proper, my experience, no proper idea what their crown jewels are, because they change all the time, of course, depending on what's going on in the business.
Yeah, I think that's really
Tim Golden. Jesse, before you jump in, Tim actually did something. So cybersecurity, we're going to call this asset inventory, asset management, right, Tim? Like step one.
Yeah.
Right. So it's amazing how like the parallels in the life cycle of IP it just falls right into line with cybersecurity as well.
Exactly. I mean, you know what you have, know where it is, know who has access, and I think this is where Jesse's going. Right before I steal his thunder, is
go for it.
Where is it? Who has it? All that fun things, right? And so, Jesse, I know you were going to chime in, so let me play on up.
Well, yeah, no, I think it's interesting, and we talk about, like John mentioned, the overlap of trade secrets, IP, and cybersecurity, right? And while there are some different pieces there's kind of like that Venn diagram where they do overlap in the middle. And I think a simple pragmatic reason to get a crown jewels exercise done is that it helps you target and get aligned with the business and actually strategically position cybersecurity controls that help the business protect what they value most. So trade secrets aside, I still don't understand why we're not doing crown jewels exercises and identification, kind of like the first thing in the door that we do as VCSOs and risk strategists for our clients. Because when you sit down and force leadership to think through what the most critical things are, and then align those things that they've said are critical with the controls we're proposing, all of a sudden that's telling a story, and it makes a lot more sense. And we might discover that, hey, we've been doing some things that maybe we're not getting a ton of mileage out of. And so maybe we should shift efforts, take money and shift budgets, and that becomes on a business conversation. I think it's very powerful to do all those things for the security program, even aside from insider and threat and IP protection, right?
Yeah.
So
completely.
I'm gonna be the guy, right? I'm gonna talk a little bit through, like, we use these words, crown jewels, right? Let's put this in terms that MSPs can understand,
Like
right?
that.
I'm
Yeah.
not gonna walk into my customer and say to them, hey, let me talk about crown jewels, because they're gonna be like, no, like, it's just weird to them, right? So if I'm an MSP and I'm trying to have this risk conversation, this
Yeah.
discovery conversation, like, how do I even walk into that customer and be able to start that, right? What is a pragmatic way for us to do that?
Yeah.
First thing, Tim, if I may jump in, is what's existential?
Yeah.
If this
There you
went
go.
missing, this got lost, if somebody stole it, would that impact your ability to carry on as a business? Would that impact your
Right.
ability to make money?
Right.
If so, that's probably going to be one of your most sensitive, most valuable piece of information.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
existential, number one. Number two is then profit impact. If would it impact on your profitability?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the next one down is impact on the business, but not that major kind of thing. So if you can categorize things in those three areas, that's relatively simple to do. People get their head around it, in my experience, quite quickly. Existential, profit impact, and just general impact, and see how you go. But I'd be really keen to see what how you guys do it as well.
That is wild that you just said that, John, because I literally have an explainer that I use with my clients. It's like you were just reading off of that. That's funny.
Hand it over to me, it'd be a lot better than mine.
Yeah. But that's it. I think, right, what's a high level crown jewel is something that's existential to the business. If the CIA was compromised, either the confidentiality, the integrity, or the availability of this data or system, does that pose an existential threat to our business? Right? And that's a really easy way to think about it. And to your point, Tim, I think I used to call them, when I worked in the MSP as a CISO with our clients and with our team, we'd call them applications or line of business applications. So you could call it critical systems, you could call it line of business applications. That starts to make more sense maybe to the client when you're dealing with a less sophisticated organization, right?
Gotcha. All right. So StreamYard's having a little bit of like lag. That was me. StreamYard's having a little bit of lagginess. So thank you, everybody, for your patience.
I think that might be Elon with the satellite that Jesse uses. But,
or something. Yeah. There's
talk about
a little bit
insider,
of
Yeah.
It's all good though. So to kind of just for the listening audience, maybe I have a little bit better connection. I'll just restate what Jesse was saying, and that is, instead of using words like crown jewels, maybe you use words like line of business applications, or what we like to walk through, like a revenue process. What brings, how do you make money? Right? Walking into my customer as an MSP and flat out asking them, what makes you money? Because in that is the crown jewel, right? Oh, well, and we talked about this on Wednesday with our good friend Joe from Lion Guard. Like, as an MSP, I can walk into the baker. I can talk to that bakery about, like, is your freezer more important than your fryer? Right? Or is the cashier out front more important than the milk? Right? And so you can kind of start to have that conversation in the words that they're used to, instead of crown jewel or line of business or apps or whatever. Having that conversation in terms that they can understand. Like, for example, hey, do you care about your milk as a baker, or do you care more about the cashier out front?
Well, I think it gets Tim, it gets even like fuzzier, right? Like, how long's your business been? Like, if the average townie came by, like, would they know the name of your business, right? Like, that's hard to, that brand and what you're doing that's special in the market, right? Like, that's hard to kind of, I don't know, convey or like unearth with the customer usually, right? Like, as you said, you're mentioning kind of hard assets, physical assets. this idea of intangibles, as you said, what makes them money, I think is really, really, that deep conversation that'll unearth these risks, right, as well, on like, what's it gonna, like, what would have to happen to your business for it to, stop selling, right, or becoming, the place that people went in that community. So, I think that, yeah, and great comment there. If you want to pull that up, Tim, I don't have access to it, but yeah.
So our good friend Bob, hey Bob, thanks for listening. Glad to have you here. Do the things, right? The things. So
Bob teaches innovation actually, and deals with a lot of IP. And Bob, John, he's a great person for you to connect with.
Yeah.
Down in Louisiana, he's a professor or a visiting professor teaching about innovation. And we talk at length about this, like how startups protect themselves. What's the best way for them to protect IP, to get, a competitive edge very early when they're scrappy. So there he is.
Yeah. So Bob does bring up a good question. It kind of circles back to that, things to protect, physical, cyber, so on and so forth, the C-suite. So Jesse, you want to chime in on a little bit, and then we'll get John's take on it too.
Well, he's exactly right, and I think, and this is no knock against the C-suite or anything like that. They have a wide variety of business risk that they're dealing with, and so cybersecurity is one little piece of that, and we got to keep that in mind, right? But when we start broadening that overlap and talking about what's important to the business and what are business risks and how do our trade secrets and our intellectual property affect that, and how do we protect those from a cyber lens, and they're participating in choosing those things. Again, we want a mandate from the top down to say the executive team has stated that these are the most important parts of the business, most important data in the business, most important systems in the business, and they have mandated that we protect them. And he said they are emotionally invested. That's what I really liked about Bob's comment, because that's true. You've taken them out of their whirlwind of all the other things that they're doing, and you've allowed them to anchor in their mind why cybersecurity is important and why we need to do the things that we say that we're doing.
Gotcha. That's good stuff. Good stuff. And just more comments coming in. Yeah, it is. Of course it is. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, it's got to come. It's got to come from the top, right? You've got to make them believe why it's important, why they need to protect their advantage, and why they need to empower employees and build this kind of culture that it's not okay to just like walk out with lists and things like that. I put together some slides. I don't know if we'll get time to them, but I really talk about the life cycle, and there's people, processes, and technology. And technology is really only there to enforce policies and the things that we're, I think, trying to wrap our head around right now, like having those initial conversations with the business leader and building policy, right? Building a framework, building a way to think about like how we're going to protect this. Yeah. And cybersecurity starts to come into the picture, at least from a tool perspective, to enforce those policies and make sure that employees do the right thing, right? So, John, yeah, any thoughts on that? And I know you're
good question. Sorry?
Your bandwidth's pretty good right now, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the UK and the sort of bandwidth, but yeah, I always say, and it's very simple to say and probably difficult to execute, it starts and ends with the employee and the employee's understanding. If they've got a good understanding of what intellectual property is, what's most valuable in your business, and why it's important to protect and defend that, the battle is largely won because people are looking out for it. But it's often not the case that people have a good understanding of what it is. I mean, let's be honest, intellectual property is a very nebulous concept anyway, and the vast majority of people really don't have a common understanding of what intellectual property is, and they've never spent the time to do so. And that in itself, potentially, in my world at least, my small world at least, is an issue. It may well be the same with information security as well, but the terminology is designed to send people down avenues patenting a copyright and all that kind of stuff is just gobbledygook, but most people don't fully understand what IP is, and hence they can't be looking out to protect it. And as you said at the top of the hour there, Tim, the majority of valuable information in the business is lost inadvertently by insiders, not maliciously. I think you said 56% or 26% is malicious. So if you can train your employees, you're trying to reduce that 56%. The 26%, then you do need the technology as well to come to bear, and that's where you guys come in to help track what's going on and who's downloading and who's exporting and so on and so forth.
Yeah, the whole idea around either negligent or malicious, right? For me, I start to think of are we as a small business? I'll put my small business hat on. Are we as a small business? Are we just dumb and ignorant and ill-informed because we don't know that the employee is going to just grab the list and walk out the door? Is it from like our executive piece? Like, oh, I never thought my sales rep would take my list and go work for my competitor. Is it that side, or is it the hey, I'm an employee and they're not like, I want to make more money, so I'm just going to steal their list and go to my competitor that's going to pay me more money, and I'm going to bring my book of business, right? So is it that whole neglect, or is it malicious, or is it all of it? Is it both sides of it when we think of, insider threat? And there's a whole big conversation about where this relates into supplier risk, third-party risk, and so on and so forth, up and down the chain. But kind of bringing us back into the sort of topic of today. Is it just ignorance and neglect, or is it bad, malicious employees, or is it both?
So, Tim, you write a lot on this, but I think a lot of it is, Tim Schnur, that is, it's always been there, Tim Golden. It's always happened. And, the sales guy becomes a CEO. Somewhere along the line in his career, he's taking PowerPoints from one business to the next, and he's taking contacts and CRM information from one business to the next. It's almost, my skill actually when I'm out there in the market, not me, but is actually getting people to talk over and above what they should be talking about. And I learned so much at that conference. But Tim, you've written a bit about this. I've read a couple of your articles. It's along those lines, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Bob had a great comment there. It's everything you've created, right? So I think that's the problem, and it's this expectation when you start to work at a company. Are you a partner? Or are you a business owner? Or are you an employee? And I think employees a lot of times think that, as they said, they created something, they created a deck, it's theirs. But if any of you have ever worked at a very large company, John and I have, you sign something when you work, you sign something from the beginning that says like all IP created is property of the company, right? Like, yep. I've been involved. My name's been on a couple of patent applications, actually. John was as well. But my name's on there as an inventor, but I am not the owner. I'm not the assigned right. I'm not assigned rights of that IP. So if you have that expectation very early on, like bringing employees on and getting them to acknowledge that they are there, they're being paid, they're being paid to work at a company, and the IP that's created is not theirs. So they can't walk out the door. They can't give it to a competitor. So I think that's really important, just that expectation setting. And, maybe in a second here, we'll talk about kind of the IP life cycle, but that's really important, right? Confidentiality agreements we've had on even non-competes, which I don't think non-competes are really needed anymore, because if you have this declaration and acknowledgement of IP from the beginning, it's much less of a problem. So,
so what you're saying is,
New York, there's things right here. Like I said, we're not really getting into the cybersecurity yet, but we're getting into the people, process, policy, the governance aspects that Tim knows so well. So.
Yeah, so what I was going to say when I was trying to rudely interrupt you, which I'm getting better at not doing, is Oh, you mean we should have a good employment agreement or a good MSA or a good contract
Yeah.
as an MSP with our customer and with our staff, right?
Mhm.
Jesse, have you seen any of this kind of stuff kind of
Yeah.
flowing through in any of your MSP work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the better MSPs are, having a works for hire clause like you would get with an independent contractor. And I mean, I think that's especially important. And John, you can probably talk about this at length later, but especially if you're working with independent contractors, protecting IP becomes even more difficult, right? So you definitely have to have some ironclad language around works for hire and having them declare any previous IP that they're bringing in, or maybe IP that they're not allowed to use. You got to kind of suss all that out when you're bringing on contractors. However, from a strictly MSP perspective, I know one thing sticks out in my mind. There was a salesperson at one of the MSPs I worked with that tried to walk out with a customer list, and we actually, again, we were very security focused early on, and so we kind of had a system. When we noticed things about an employee that made us think they might be leaving or there was something wrong there, we put monitoring on what they were doing in the environment, what they were accessing, right? And so we actually did find that he was pulling down a customer list and sending it to his personal email. We were able to catch that and serve him with a cease and desist. And luckily, we nipped it in the bud, right? So that was a win. But I think do you catch that every single time? No. But I think to your point, John, it's about educating other employees, and maybe he didn't know. I was not in management at that time in this MSP, so I don't know if he was malicious or he just thought, hey, I'm leaving. I'm going to take the customers that I've worked hard to build relationships with and sell them something at my new job. So it could have been something that was actually benign. You don't know. But point being is, what do they say? Whether it's ignorance or malicious, it's still the same, right?
Oh, you mean this?
There you go.
Negligence, or I'm getting better.
Well,
I'm getting better. Yeah. So you mentioned you put in things to monitor. You put in things to, I hate to use the word, catch them, right? We know our MSP audience loves tools. We don't generally specifically call out tools, but I wanted to have just a 5-minute conversation on, are there ways that we as an MSP for ourselves and our customer to be able to know, Sammy the salesman just downloaded an Excel document of lists and put it on a thumb drive and took it with him. Yeah. Is there tools that can do that? Is that just DLP or is that M3? How do we do that from a practical standpoint, since there's a bunch of people here listening and they love tools?
Yeah. Well, it's difficult. It is not perfect. And that's why I think John is saying, when the employee understands it, that's where you get 90% of the issue solved. Of course, that doesn't solve malicious, right? DLP is UEBA is another one. A salesman's going to be accessing client records, right? But probably not 1,000 client records all at once. So if we have alerts set up for excessive record access or things of that nature, or certain type of exports being run, or better yet, we don't let exports be run. So if they are going to try and take customers out, they're going to have to go click on every record individually and screenshot it. We make it more difficult for them to do that. And so maybe that dissuades them and says, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. So those are all things you can do.
That's a good point. Where you get to that deterrent, right? So they see one person get caught and they're like, whoa, I don't think I don't want to be that guy that's getting sued by the company.
Yeah.
In the financial services world, it's much more common. People get, there's litigation on non-competes or people stealing things and one of the reasons why there is litigation is because the evidence in the logs that these companies and their attorneys have are so good. Tim just mentioned DLP, right? So this logging and tracking and access, the fact that they have their, as I said, least trust, lean function, they have a very small surface area. They know exactly where their data is, who's accessing it, when they're accessing it. Over the last 4 weeks before they left the company, they've got a rock solid case. And, So go ahead.
So you mean they have like there's technical controls and non-technical controls in order to like bring this thing together, right?
There we go. So this is really the life cycle here, and identify, protect, right? Like detect, respond, and recover. Like these sound familiar, right? From a NIST perspective, the same life cycle in IP, right? A lot of the people that are involved in risk management, I mean, a lot of the same kind of steps, the 5-step process here. But we start with, I think, the big circle right there. John can talk about this because this is really where I think he's heavily involved, probably with NDAs and confidentiality and employee handbooks, as Bob Miller mentioned, all these things that kind of build that expectation, build that acknowledgement from employees that they need to do the right thing, right? Data retention policy is another non-technical control that talks about like how long do we keep data, how long do we get rid of data, and John, maybe you want to talk about trade secret catalogs, right? Like I think that's a concept that don't get caught on the word trade secret, but like think about just anything proprietary. And maybe you want to talk about like how you do that, and then we can kind of come back to that diagram and talk about all the enforcement once you have the data classification and the data cataloging. I guess you're going to talk about, right?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. And just going back to the very quickly to the employee and the entry and exit from the business. The first thing they learn about, as you said, is everything you create here is ours. It's all proprietary, and you can't take it with us. And then, as they're leaving the business, it's like, okay, so as we said at the beginning, everything you created here is ours, and you can't leave with it. And by the way, those canny little HR questions, such as what that you've learned while you're here is going to be most valuable to you in your new role. Yeah, so from a trade secret perspective, that valuable commercial and inventive information, because we must remember, as we've alluded to here, it's both. A lot of people go down the avenue of just being inventive. It's either a patent or it's a trade secret. Yeah, but also, as Tim's mentioned, it's commercial information. It's the market research. It's the product launch, the new product launch that's coming up. It's pricing. It's customer list. It's profitability information. It's managerial relationships. Who's getting on with who's about to leave the business, and etc. But it's
So like
in a core case to have catalogued your intellectual property, and by that I mean to have captured it, date stamped it. When did you have it? And documented it. And if you haven't done that, it's very difficult to persuade the judge that you actually own that information at that said point in time. So it seems a bit of an onerous exercise, but many businesses, and you guys, on the information side of things, when you're doing IS information stuff, you are recording a lot of information a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not too difficult, I found, to convert that into something that could be in a trade secrets register. But there's two components: trade secrets register, where information is captured but not the trade secrets, and then separately you document the trade secret, the code, the algorithm, the customer list, etc. You keep that separate in a separate area.
A little metadata, yeah. So you're basically hashing this stuff. You're going deep.
Yeah. So like Gene points out here, like got to audit, got to figure out what you have, got to make sure that it's changed, managed, right? All the things, right? So you can't protect what you don't know. Back to that whole conversation of what is it, where is it, how do we protect it? As Bob points out, the policies and procedures, all of that, book of business, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But what is next here in our little slide deck? Make sure I get that up here, right? Oh, wait a minute. I jumped to the tool part like 10 minutes ago. Whoops. I jumped the gun.
Yeah, I think Jesse probably has a lot of experience on the tool side.
Yeah.
You as well, Tim, right? In terms of some of the tools you can log, right? So I think John was just really talking to the customer, putting them in that hypothetical mindset. Yeah. Something really bad happened to your company, employees stole something. You're going to be in front of a judge in 2 years. What kind of evidence do you want to have
Right.
so you have a strong case. So I think, Jesse started to dig into that a little bit, Tim as well. So
Yeah, I think the zero trust piece is a big, a good way to start enforcing that and creating landing zones that's, have least policy access to, and only the right people should be storing the right things there. One thing we don't talk about products a ton, but one thing I like about Confluence from Atlassian, for example, is the fact that everything's date tagged. You can restrict, space access, and they even have workflows now. So you could automatically tag something as intellectual property if it's completed in a specific space, and only give people via SSO that are supposed to be working on it access to that space. And that's just one small, easy to do example, right? But you're getting all that tracking, all that stuff is created, and and then the training piece is, hey, you guys can only work in this space. This is where, when you're working on this project, this stuff gets created. This is all intellectual property. This is all company-owned material. You need to treat it as such. And it's not even a don't take it stuff. It's just, hey, it's good hygiene, security hygiene. But in the piece of doing that, you're building in business process to start creating that register. And so I would love to hear from John as to what he's seen pragmatically that will work to start getting that catalog created.
Yeah, so that there are, but it doesn't have to be that complex. You can run it on an Excel spreadsheet.
Right.
Fine at the beginning, but you can very quickly. I guarantee I can see most companies in their engineering department will find 10 to 20 trade secrets from each group of people very, very quickly, and then you start to get an unwieldy amount. So you do need to have key things documented and captured, as we've said already.
Right.
What is it? You need some kind of code for it. Some ID tag for it. What it is it? Some summary of what it is, and then date stamp. When was it created?
Right.
When's it going to be reviewed? Who owns it?
And that goes to business process, right? Like, I mean, this is just another piece we put into. We're all about documentation and process here in MSP world, right? So a project close step is to complete the catalog steps as part of the intellectual property tagging and clean that up, right? And you're looking at, maybe an hour's worth of work that's additional to make sure that stuff gets recorded properly. And then you have that built into your system, and it becomes just another piece in the process that you're executing, right? So it's that iterative process.
People and process, right? People and process.
Mm-hmm.
I want to roll back here. Go ahead.
Cool.
I was going to roll back to one of the comments that came in. Let's see if I can find it here. Jonathan here talking about BIA, right? Because, we were talking about how do we do this? How do we have that conversation? What's the pragmatic way of actually doing this alongside of our customer, right? And, a BIA, business impact analysis, is a really good first step. I have a lot of experience in BIAs and how that can maybe tie into insider threat as one of the items in a BIA. Jesse, I don't want to go on and on about BIAs. Do you have a little bit of insight into BIA?
Well, to the question, right? I think how this feeds into BIA, I think we kind of touched on that, right? From a really high level is, criticality of the data. Is it existential? Is it extremely important, or is it a minor inconvenience? And that's the way to think about it. That's like the easiest BIA you can do, right? And I always try to put that into buckets. Is it existential, like John said? Is it long-term damage, meaning it could be, and I always try to put time frame on it. Like, can we recover from this? Yes, but it's take us 6 months to a year to get back up to where we were from it. So we have a year of either reduced profits or no profits. Can we weather that, right? And then, look at a quarter, a month or two. It'd be a black eye, it wouldn't be fun, but we can kind of weather that storm very easily, right? And so, yeah, business disruption scenarios to consider. Physical damage to a building. Well, maybe we're remote, so that doesn't really matter for us, right? So it's creating that matrix of impact versus urgency, right? At the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting because even just this resource from ready.gov around BIAs, right? we're a SaaS company, right? We work out of our home office. Our people are remote. We're a SaaS company. New England just got nailed by some nor'easter a couple days ago, and I lost power. And I had a whole boatload of meetings and a whole boatload of things I was going to try to get done, and I had no power and no internet. What was the first thing I did? I went and pulled out my business continuity plan and remembered, and started going through that and was like, I have a threshold of how long my house can be without power before my sump pump fills my basement full of water. Right? The talk about the physical damage, the talk about, the interruptions, the outages, right? But where does that kind of, flow into insider threat? Like, I'm talking physical stuff. Well, insider threat can be that disgruntled employee. Insider threat can be, whether it's malicious or neglectful, that human that decides to take home the extra half dozen of eggs because, oh, well, you didn't use the whole dozen. I'm just going to take the rest home tomorrow. And I do that day after day after day. And now the business is missing 30 dozen eggs because a little over time, right? Whether it's malicious or not.
Definitely.
So, anyways,
I made a
digress.
comment, and this is not like this idea of protecting proprietary, strategic, confidential information. I just made a comment. If anyone's seen the movie Oppenheimer, in New Mexico, right? Like, they had them separated in different camps where each speciality, and this least trust compartmentalized, right? Like, well, the people that understand this part of the project and this part of the project, they're all in separate areas and they don't intermingle. So, this isn't a very new concept, least trust, and just, how basically he was worried about, foreign country, the enemies, right, gaining that information. So they had them broken up. I don't know if this was Oppenheimer's or the general's idea, but this isn't a new concept, just from a least trust perspective. But so Tim, do we have anything else on on the document, just on the life cycle here?
I need to go back to the other slide that I was sharing. Hold on, let me do that. This one?
Yeah, just the technical controls here on the right. These are all things, like we said, that you can use to enforce these rights and provide that evidence. It's just, these are all, like, as you said, MSPs, InfoSec guys, either, if it's insourced or outsourced IT, everyone loves the tools. And these tools provide great ability to provide that zero trust, great ability to provide the tracking and logging, the reminding. As Jesse said before, it's a little bit of a deterrent. If the employees know that there's great logs, certainly when I've worked on consulting jobs at banks and financial companies, like, I'm not walking out of there with anything. I'll tell you that. The expectation and just the presence of security is pretty high. So, yeah, John. Anything?
What do they say? Good locks make good neighbors.
Yeah.
Good fences make good neighbors.
No. Yeah.
John, I know your internet's coming back and forth, but anything else to add? Really, like, I talk about, as you said, like, why don't people realize the damages are so big, right? Like, the fact that, I guess, are we just used to people not knowing, like, not maintaining their strategic advantage? Like, talk a little bit about that on how when you're working with your clients, like, how do you get that point across? Because it's not in the news, right? Like, it's not like malicious insider threat. And as you said, like, the biggest theft of, corporate assets is happening right now, and we don't think about it. So, like, how do you get that message across?
What I like about you guys is that you do the kind of likes really well. So it's kind of like this, it's kind of like that. And I'm learning a lot from the way you do that, because it is about bringing it down to distilling it down to what's really important. This isn't malicious. This is a case that happened to me today. Big company, very, very successful, big tech company. and one of the top employees is doing a master's degree outside of work, and they said, "Oh, it's fine, isn't it? I'm doing it all about our strategy and this." And he goes, "Whoa, whoa, hold on! You're doing your master's degree, which is public information, all about our strategy." So people just aren't thinking about it. But I haven't quite got these sort of analogies down to a T like you guys have, but it's not something that's like somebody walked out with a bag of money. Somebody got the gold, somebody got the jewels, somebody did the business over. Because data isn't that easy for the majority of people to get their heads around, and so it's not perceived to be a crime. But as you guys know, when it happens, the companies aren't shouting about, "Oh, so we've been done over by an employee, we've been done over by a customer, a supplier." They're suppressed. The learnings from it are minimalized because it's not sort of processed and engineered and understood, and that's a big issue, I think. So it's not socialized, so people are going, "Oh, yeah, that's a big issue." It's suppressed, so people are going, "I've not really heard about that,"
Yeah.
and then the learnings aren't happening. So information is leaking, and people are suppressing it. Oh, it's not much of a problem. No, 10 to 15 years worth of work on our latest sort of chat GPT tool. No, that's not a problem at all. No, really.
Can I just
Well,
have GPT write my stuff for me and say, give me a protection thing and let me just give that, and like, how do I protect my stuff? GPT.
right.
Yeah.
Well, there's that whole piece is inadvertent training with trade secrets. So it goes. That's a great point you brought up. Is hey, if stuff is trade secrets, you can't go dropping it into Chat GPT because we're training the model with proprietary information, and you might as well put it out there just like anything else. Because
So
across the pond, one of our competitors might type in, "How do I do X, Y, Z?" and they get this really great answer, like, "Wow, I can't believe Chat GPT thought of that." Well, they didn't. You just fed that data right into the model.
So should I
Walter
be?
Hayek, go ahead. Walter Hayek had a great thing about this, like even things that aren't classified as sensitive, just by you having access to your environment. There's this idea in investment research called the mosaic theory. Like if you get two pieces of non-public, non-material information, you can come up with like material information, right? Like things that actually move the needle. And he made this point that you put in all this information, it's not classified, and if it's not sensitive, it's still dangerous because like it's intelligent, it can figure, if this then that, right? Like it can think of. So I think it's really risky, and I think the classification problem. This is going to bring this issue to the surface pretty quickly. Go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
Yeah, Bob's got a great comment about unintentional disclosures, right? So, no, I was just going to make a joke about the whole Chat GPT. So, in other words, everything that I want MSPs to be searching for around what we offer for services, I should be training Chat GPT on and keep feeding it all the information when you're thinking of the CISO, go over to Power Grid. When you're thinking inquisitive IT, or you're thinking, IP and intellectual property or compliance, we should just keep feeding it all of our stuff, right? At least the public.
How about this week, and maybe some, how LinkedIn kind of drips features in, so other people may have had this before I did, but these group articles that they're getting everyone to contribute to, like they were of course training an AI model, and then on my profile this week popped up like, "Oh, want to know more about this subject? Click the AI button," and it's literally like almost reading back to me things that I've typed, articles that I put into.
I got that too, and I was like. It's the little star sprite thing. Yeah. It happened to me, and I was like, "Oh my god!" Like, wait, Jesse just wrote that, or Tim just wrote that. I know that because what?
But like to the mosaic theory, right? You're talking about, Tim. Is imagine that you've been using learned trade secrets from your job to respond to those articles, and all of a sudden, LinkedIn is giving that information away for free.
Yeah, that's what Walter was laying down. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Just jump in if I may, because the property area is being challenged, and like it's never been challenged before, as we know, copyright, LLMs, etc. But if you think about it, if you just bear with me for a minute, think about inventions. You either patent or you trade secret or you publish. If you patent nowadays, within 18 months it's published. And Tim knows this better than most. 2, 3, maybe 5 years later, you get a granted patent. But now, that 18-month point, every single inventive LLM in the world is reading that thing and inventing on the back of it before you've even got a granted patent.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's strategically, you've got to really consider whether you're patenting or whether you're trade secreting, and how you're going to go and approach that. And there was some stuff in the news today about the weight loss drugs, which billions of people around the world are going to be taking eventually. They've got a whole new AI invention tool that's come up with a different way of getting around the patents of the current thing, and dealt with some of the side effect issues, and bing bang bosh, they've invented a newer, better prototype for weight loss. So from an invention perspective, it's a whole new game now. Patent, trade secret, publish. There's lots of strategic measures to undertake because of what you've just been discussing on the LLMs and the SDGs and stuff.
I've no, but John and I've heard people say this, and I'd love to get, it's a hot take, so I'd love to hear your opinion on it. But they said, it really has signaled the death of the patent. Like, we're not going to see patents anymore. And I don't know if you say, well, let's not, but it's not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. But I'd love to hear your take on that.
My opinion, yeah.
Tim's a big, he's got a big voice, big set of thoughts on this. Very clear in his opinions on this, and I tend to agree with him.
Yeah.
The patent's been devalued quite substantially, particularly in the United States in the last 10 years. And given what we've just discussed and other factors, I think in the last 6 to 8 years, trade secrets have got stronger and stronger and stronger. And there's a whole bunch of case law coming out now. There's really, and as I said to you, I didn't say to you, but the UK has made it criminal law now in certain circumstances. So, it's getting stronger all the time. So, yes, patents or trade secret or publish is quite a substantial discussion. Yeah. But Jesse, if somebody skilled in the art, one of you guys knows the area, is likely to invent it in a short space of time, patent it,
right?
Because then you get some protection,
right?
But with trade secret law, you can claim prior user rights if somebody else does patent it, etc. Or you could publish it. So very interesting times.
That was a bit of a loaded question, of course. I tend to agree with Tim, as it seems to me in most cases, and it goes back to the impact analysis. What kind of data do you have? How secret is it? Like, if you're dealing more transactional and you're winning off of like your operational efficiency, how much money do you really want to spend trying to get a huge trade secret program going, right? But so it's a risk analysis and an impact analysis on the types of data you have, right? But that said, it makes more sense to me that being a pragmatist, just circle the wagons and protect your data through a trade secret program is going to be more effective in terms of high value data much of the time. That's just kind of how I see it.
Yeah, it's going to cover all the bases, Jesse, right? It's going to cover trade secrets that are I think the trade secret term is extremely wide, and it could be even wider. In the court, if they're taking something that they signed and acknowledged that they wouldn't take, and they took it. Yeah. That's all there is. So as John started going to talk about case law, trade secret case law is very strong, and foreign countries are stealing from us. So that's not like, the political narrative of patent trolls. And we didn't even talk about that, but these bad patent people that are just suing people. So trade secret law is everyone agrees with. And John started talking about before.
You've talked about this for a while. Trade secrets are much easier to take to court and win because it's very easy to understand good and bad in a trade secret case. So the recent analysis says 86% win rate for plaintiffs with trade secret cases. It's kind of 57% for other cases. So
that's a really high number.
90% difference on trade secrets because they're easier for the courts, the jury to get their heads around. Good guy, bad guy. Stole it, didn't steal it, kind of thing. So really interesting on that side as well.
Almost at the 5-minute mark here, Tim. But one more thing, I was talking to Paul, our good patent broker friend, and he was just talking about like the invalidation rate as well. So even if you patent things and you go to try to enforce them, chances are the courts are going to say they're invalid. So, but at least in the U.S.
Yeah.
Maybe not in Germany or Korea or whatnot, but Tim.
So as we start to wind down here, we always like to end with a couple of key takeaways. John, I'm going to pull you up first, John, and have you kind of talk a little bit about like what is the one or two key takeaways that we can have from today from you?
I can't use the word crown jewels, can I, Tim? So identify what's most valuable in your business by doing that analysis that says, what's existential, what's going to have a profit impact. Identify those things, protect them, look at them. Secondly, train your employees. Spend the time giving them education. Because if you go to a secret case and the employee says, I've no idea what you're talking about, I don't know what trade secrets are, you haven't got a leg to stand on. If you can evidence that you've trained them and they understood that, you've got a leg to stand on. So yeah, identify your crown jewels, Tim, and training.
Yeah. Awesome. That's a really good thought. So identify your crown jewels. All right. We won't dig into crown jewels. We already did that. So Mr. Schnurr, my friend.
Yeah, no, so like I said, I had a post yesterday, least trust, lean function. This really fits into this trade secret identification perspective. Your employees need to acknowledge that there's proprietary strategic information and data. You need to protect it. You need to use tools to enforce that protection, and you'll be better off. And they'll build an understanding and acknowledgement that IP that's created on their behalf belongs to the company. So that's really the big thing. There is tons of malicious insider threat happening all the time, as John said. No company is going to admit it because they don't have to, because no regulator is asking them to expunge, like when if it's not customer data, the regulators don't care. So just get that out there right now that no one's really out there to protect you. You have to protect yourself here. And it's not something you can, I'm not aware of something you can insure as well. So.
Awesome. Mr. Jesse, you are up, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to continue what John had to say about the crown jewels. And I have a training paper that I wrote back in 2015 that talks about crown jewels, Tim. So just so you know. But to continue that, I think, yes, you have to identify that, and it has to be mandated from management. So there's a piece like identify it. Who's identifying it? Make sure that this is a top-down driven approach, that management is involved, executive leadership is involved in setting those standards, and it's not just an exercise that's being done in the IT department. So I think you have to build consensus with the crown jewels and then use that consensus to identify the lowest hanging fruit in terms of technical controls, being UEBA, which there's some good stuff coming out for now, but even then just doing things like least access and ZTNA, zero trust network access, things like that. So I think those are the two things that you can continue on from the strategy piece to the tactical piece when you start to implement these programs.
Awesome. And so I suppose I ought to have a key takeaway too. I always forget to bring myself up and talk about
Johnny's lug nut. Tell me about it.
Yeah. Well, I think as far as, insider threat, whether it's neglect, whether it's malicious, whether it's ignorance, all the things that we talked about today, from a business perspective and from an MSP into that business perspective, starting to have that conversation with your client and begin with the risk conversation, begin with the revenue conversation, begin with the reputation, risk, revenue, reputation. What is going to impact your client's business as a whole? But even putting that part aside, think about your MSP yourself. You have a lot of proprietary information, not just on yourself, but on all your customers as well. Right? When you're thinking about the insider threat that can happen within your own MSP, bring your team together, have that conversation, talk about it from top-down approach about why you want to protect this stuff. have the why conversation, right? Not just the, Johnny, don't do this, don't do that. You need to be able to have the why conversation around why this stuff is important. All right. So, hey, if y'all didn't know, we have a podcast. Head on over to teamtim.live, click on the listen, and you can subscribe and listen to this podcast while you're driving, while you're mowing the lawn, while you're, dealing with the cows, Dr. Jesse. So we now have all these episodes heading on over into a podcast format. We're waiting for the Apple piece to get approved. So we'll be on the Apple Fies and the Spottlecast and all the different podcast areas. So feel free to head on over to see the Team Tim live at the bottom and do the thing. So thank you, everybody. Next week, real quick, let me pull this up here. Conferences, are they worth it? A friend of ours, Gina, anyways, I won't get into all the gory details. This is a little bit of a hot topic, a little bit of a controversial topic, right? Are they worth it? Are they worth it from an IT MSP perspective? Are they worth it from a vendor perspective? Oh my gosh, and we're about to dive into conference season. I know we're a minute over here, but I think this is really important. Do the like things, the subscribe things, the listen things, and make sure you come on over next week and listen to this episode about conferences. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And we're out, my friends. Let's do this.
Subscribe now.